Hello and welcome in, everybody. This is the Orlando Drummer Podcast, episode 14. We are cranking them out, man. It's been a while. So 2021 has been, mostly we've been focused on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's been the main thing.
Yeah, I've been cranking them out. It's been great.
Cranking them out. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing fantastic.
Awesome.
We're all coffeeed up. Mm-hmm. You got your espresso coffee.
He got himself a fancy new little espresso
I did.
mechanism. Oh, yeah. We go hard on coffee around here. Very hard.
It's part of our blood.
Yep.
50% coffee, 10% water.
Yeah, you just sprinkle the water on. You
Little
know,
bit.
That's all you need. Coffee's mostly water anyway.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we'll roll right into it.
Sure.
I got a loop of the week this week.
Loop of the week. What are we dealing with here,
We've
brother?
been going hard. We're looking at Cosmic Metal.
Cosmic Metal.
V1, Loop 2.
Loop 2.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Cosmic Metal was such a fun pack to do. And really, this was like loosely inspired by Nick DiPiero, because that's kind of how I would describe his whole style. Nick DiPiero, he's written plenty of tracks for us that are also on the site. He's got a loop pack on the site. And he's the guitarist of the band Night Versus. Eric and Proda is the drummer. And it's like if you wanted to be metal, but everything has like this ambient, like spacious quality to it in a weird way. So the Cosmic Metal pack was sort of inspired by his playing, but man, it's a really, really fun pack for sure. Let's let everybody hear it. This is Cosmic Metal Loop 2.
V1 Loop 2.
V1 Loop 2. Check it out.
The gent days.
Yeah, man.
Oh, man. When I was just listening to, like, Volumes and just Dream Theater, which isn't gent at all.
Like Chug City. I know what you're talking about.
Exactly. Chug-a-lug.
One-way trip to Chug City, man.
God.
It's fun. Well, I mean, I think drummers are attracted to that whole style because of how rhythmic it is.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember one time somebody pointed out that, like, you can tell that Foo Fighters, or rather Dave Grohl, used to be a drummer because of the amount of palm muting. Like, they almost, like, you can hear, like, the rhythmic influence, right? It's not so, like, melody-driven as much as, and, I don't know, the gent is kind of like that, right? It's like, very rhythmically driven, so drummers tend to get drawn to it. And guitarists, it's like 50-50. Some guitarists don't really study or think about rhythm that much, and I think if you went down that like Chug City rabbit hole, like you find yourself having to study rhythm a lot closer to how drummers study rhythm. And I think that genre has a lot of cool like connections in there, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Hell yeah. Well, that's, go ahead, what were you saying?
I was going to say, great for the feet.
Yeah.
You're doing double bass exercises. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can spend your whole life working on that kind of stuff. Absolutely. Well, yeah, check out that loop pack, Cosmic V1. Of course, you can buy any loop pack you want individually, download them, and own the files. Or you can use code ODPC, and you can get 25% off your first 2 months to orlandodrummer.com after a free 7-day trial. And, of course, that includes all 300-plus loops in the library. You can stream all of them, offline playback through the apps, and 160 hours of educational content, master classes, interviews with pro drummers, in-depth lesson packs, you name it. We got it waiting for you. And, also cool, we're rolling out a new loop pack right now. It's not out completely. Only the first loop is out. But for the next 4 weeks or so, we're rolling out one every Saturday for our members. And that is the Dubstep V1 loop pack. Womp, womp, womp for the kids. You know what I mean? Well, we've done 2 EDM packs, and then we did 2 house packs. So we've been kind of like dancing around dubstep for a while, but we decided like, all right, let's just go all the way in. The reason Joe didn't want to do them though is because it's a lot of like unique programming that goes into making some of those sounds. It's like it's all virtual instruments, but it's like
extreme frequency modulation.
Yeah. Well, and the instruments and the plugins that you use are not similar to like any of the plugins that he owns. So we had to do like a lot of research and like, okay, how do you make the womp womp sound? Because it's not as easy as you'd think. So there's a lot of like, I don't know. I would be lying if I said I was the one in there actually making them, but it's tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah, it's really just taking like waveforms and breaking them down to like really small points, and then modulating them with other waveforms like square waves and sine waves and sawtooth waves.
Yeah, there's a level of nerdiness to that style of music that I think a lot of people don't understand. It's very tricky,
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, we'll start it off like we always do with trying to trick you.
Oh, yeah.
Let's start out with player puzzle.
Player puzzle, man. Let's do it.
Yeah. With so many drummers out there, it's hard to tell the difference, but some stand out so well that they're absolutely recognizable. In player puzzle, we'll provide 3 hints to see if Adam can guess who's playing. Let's see if we can stump him. Please, God, I hope I stump him.
It was funny. Last week was the second stump. That was it, right? And we've done 8 of these? 8 player puzzles?
Yeah, I think so.
But 2 drummers each. So I'm like 14 out of 16, somewhere around there. So I'm pretty proud of myself. We're getting there, but you're also running through some of the more like obvious ones. Like we've already done like, I don't know, who's the most like Greb is a good example of like, it's hard to get that wrong. But we're getting into some sketchy territory here. So we're going to find out what we can do.
We'll get there. So we'll go ahead. We'll start out. Click on star. Maybe the first audio clue.
Let's do it. Player puzzle number 1. So I have a guess based off of not just the style, because this particular person who I'm thinking of, I'll give you a hint for anybody at home. Their initials, my guess, their initials are BS. And that's just a guess. I'm not totally convinced if it's this guy. But his playing style is, he definitely can do all of the drunk drumming and like the feel manipulation. But it's also the audio, because that audio was really dialed in. There was like an A&F vintage dryness to it. Not 100% convinced, but that was pretty dialed in. That whole package seems to fit one particular guy who I'm thinking of. But let's keep going. What's our next hint here for this guy? Or girl?
This drummer only stuttered...
They only stuttered?
I only stuttered.
You stuttered saying
I stuttered, and they only started studying music at the age of 26.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's a weird one, right?
Do we know if they played drums before then? And like they began but they began studying.
But began studying seriously music at age 26. More drums at age 26.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of close to how I was, right? Maybe not 26, but I didn't even glance at like real music notation or subdivisions or any of that stuff until I was 21, but had played since like age 12. See, to me, that's just an indicator that you have killer ears. Because if you can play for that long without studying anything, it's because you're relying on your ears. Okay, what's hint number 3 here? We got a kit photo.
Got a kit photo. Hey, click on star.
On star. Oh, see, that messes me up. There's no reason to think that first audio clip was played on a Roland.
No, there's no reason. Nope.
Yeah, I don't think it was. Man, that's so tricky because the Roland kit, you do me dirty a little bit on this one because there's no cymbals, there's no heads, right? So you don't get any of that context. Huh. And I don't know that this drummer that I'm thinking of would necessarily want to play on a Roland. He's such an audio nerd. Also a studio owner. Okay, I'm going to stick with my original guess. I'm not super confident. The Roland is throwing me off. I don't actually know that this guy plays any electronics.
Well, here.
Okay.
I have 2 other kit photos.
Okay, that might be helpful.
So if you think Roland is cheating...
Well, it's just that if I was going to determine it by the head endorsement, the cymbal endorsement, any of that, Roland will never have those. So let's see. You're gonna Dropbox me or airdrop me another one?
Let me airdrop you another kit photo.
Okay. Evans, Meinl, Tama.
This is me helping you out.
Yeah. So the Tama. Oh. I have a new guess. I have a new guess based off of this. First of all, Tama is definitely helpful. The Roland makes sense now because this woman does play Roland, and I recognize that stack. That is actually not really a stack. Those are the D-pats. I believe this is Sister Annika Niles.
It is!
Yeah, Annika Niles. Man, it's a tricky one. She does that drunk drumming style so well.
Yeah.
So well, man. And also the reverse 10-12 or 12-10, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
That definitely helps as well. Okay. Man, so what got me was something about the feel and the audio sound. Brody Simpson was my guess initially. Brody Simpson. And I don't think he ever does electronic stuff because he's so into like the actual art of recording. He's such a good like audio guy. And that mix it sounded really, really good. But Annika does play like super dry, washed out sounds. And yeah, I mean, I suppose Tama and A&F, not a lot of crossover there, but she plays weird heads on her kit too, right?
Yeah.
What is that snare head? That black one, Onyx?
Yeah, that Onyx Evans head. That would be on her side snare that she.
Yeah,
has,
she plays the 2-snare thing, kind of like Larnell sometimes.
Yeah, either on her right or her left, and she mixes between the two.
Yep.
The other hint too is that she prefers Babinga for her personal kit, tuned low.
Babinga tune low, man. That is like as wet and heavy of a kit sound as you can get.
But beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, Babinga's amazing. Yeah, I've played the Thomas Star Classic Birch Babinga. Man, that's a special kit, man. It's such an awesome blend of woods for sure. And it records wet too. It has like such a slap to it, Babinga does. It's a really unique sounding wood. It is low frequency, but it doesn't sound like walnut or mahogany, where they're almost a little bit more in the dry thud sort of sound. Babinga is like a low but like wet frequency. It's really weird.
Low wet.
Low wet. I don't know. Yeah.
All right.
Cool. That was a good one. And a close one, too. A close one.
No, you only got it because I gave you a second kit
I'll give you
photo.
that. I appreciate it.
So that's a half win for me.
A half win. I'll take it.
Half
a W, so it's a V.
Next drummer up is boxing.
Boxing.
Go ahead and play boxing.
All right. Player puzzle number 2. Here we go. Man, so that is an electronic kit. That one definitely is. Tricky, man, tricky. The play style was interesting too, very experimental. You could tell they were holding back a lot though. Like this drummer can definitely shred, but they didn't in this clip. So it's fairly high level. I don't know from that. No guess yet. Let's go to our next hint here.
What's your hint? Your hint is they play for the band The Hot at Nights.
Oh, The Hot at Nights. I recognize that. Okay, I'm pretty sure I know who it is. Initials for anybody playing at home would be NB. And this guy is severely underrated, like very, very, very underrated. I've talked to several other friends of mine who play professionally and said, have you heard of this guy? And they go, no, I don't think so. And I'll show them clips of this guy playing, and they're just like, what the hell? Like, how on earth do I not know who this guy is? Everybody has that reaction. So I'm glad he's on here, if I'm right. Yeah, he does play for the band The Hot at Nights. They're out of the Carolinas. Is that right? I think it's where he lives. North or South Carolina? Probably North. Okay, all right. Let's do our kit photo here.
All right, cool. It's also named Boxing in the folder.
Boxing. Interesting. See, this doesn't actually help me because I'm not totally sure of what his like final decisions were. This guy signed with Meinl somewhat recently. I want to say in the last 2 years or so, something like that. I'm pretty sure that this is brother Nick Baglio.
It is Nick Baglio.
Yeah, dude, how hard does he shred?
Oh my God. It's so many videos of him playing, and I was just like, which one will I choose?
Yeah.
And that was not an electronic kit.
Wasn't.
No, it was...
It almost sounded like there was a certain... Maybe it was just like heavily compressed.
He was playing a junk hat, which is that like wood with chains on it.
He does play a lot of weird stuff, yeah.
With everything. I think he had like big fat snare drum on each drum there.
Yeah.
And was playing some different pieces of his kit. Real minimal setup.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, he manipulates his audio a lot. I've definitely seen some videos of him where it's either like intentionally over compressed just to get a like industrial or industrious kind of sound where it's a little more metallic sounding, things like that. But man, his there's footage of him from, I want to say as long as like 10 years ago, like clinics that you can find that he's done back on YouTube. Oh my God, just very much an underrated player. And I say that not to imply that people don't know who he is, but like the level of fame and notoriety that he has versus his actual playing doesn't quite line up.
Yeah,
like that
it's
guy
not
just,
proportionate.
Yeah, man, he can hang with some of the best of them, man. An absolutely incredible player. And I don't think I've ever met Nick. Him and I have just talked a lot online, just texting and stuff like that over the years. I don't know that I've ever met him in person before. I was in North Carolina one time randomly and tried to link up with him to get a lesson, honestly. But yeah, man, incredible player. Go check out brother Nick Baglio, man. He absolutely shreds. And fellow Meinl artist.
Yeah, Nicky Bags. Plays those
Bags.
Those Evans, the red.
The Reds, yeah.
Yeah.
Are they hydraulic, the Reds? I don't know.
Crazy. They look gross, but sound great.
Yeah, they do sound good. A lot of control from those heads, from what I understand.
Cool,
man. That was a great one.
All right, I'm gonna say that's like 1 for 2 because I helped you with the first one. And really, there's not a whole lot of fun facts about Nick Baglio that I can pull from just like looking on the internet. So
yeah.
That was a hard one. All right, we'll move on to Accent or Ghost.
Accent or Ghost. Let's do it.
Yeah, this is a piece where we get Adam's view on many aspects of the drumming industry, and at the end we'll get an approval, which is an accent, or a disapproval, which is a ghost. What do you think about smaller or micro drum sets like the Pearl Midtown, the Sonar AQX Micro, the Tama Club Jam?
Sure. Well, I had the Safari for years, and that kit made me really fall in love with them, or at least just entertain the idea of like what can be done with a much smaller kit. I like them, man. I like them a lot. I think especially if I could go back and sort of examine like my touring days and gigging days, like, man, there was a lot of time spent lugging around 22 and 24 inch kick drums and 16 inch floor toms. And, you know, I really don't know. I don't know if I would have missed anything if I had have just had an 18-inch kick drum, right? I think it just would have made my life easier and nobody would have really known the difference. Of course, it depends. Like in the Stockholm days when it was a lot of rock shows, like, yeah, you can there is a difference between a 16-inch kick drum on a Sonar Safari and the 22-inch DW Performance Series kick that I had. You know, when you mic that thing up at a House of Blues, like, yeah, there's definitely a difference. But I'm a huge fan of them, man. And progressively over the years, I've always just made my drums smaller and smaller and smaller. There's a certain limit. I don't think I'd ever go below 20 inches for my kick drum, things like that. But for example, like 14-inch floor tom, to me, that's amazing. You know, right next to my snare. I just love that size. I love the rebound that I get off of it. Now, when you get into what's the new one from Sonar? The AQX Micro, is that what they call it?
That one. They've got three drum sets in the AQX line.
I saw that video from Sweetwater.
Yeah,
that they
Micro
put
was
out.
one of them, and I think the other one was Jungle, and the other one was Jazz.
Okay.
Micro's the smallest of the three.
What is that, like 16-inch kick drum?
Yeah, and then like I think it's like an 8-inch
An
rack
8-inch rack tom,
and then
yeah.
a 13-inch floor tom.
Yeah.
Where it's just hilariously small.
Yeah, and this is probably upgraded from the Safari line where they had, what did they call it? The Bop, the Jungle, and there was one other, 3 types of Safari. Yeah, but those were made out of what they call select hardwood. It was mostly poplar. So the Safaris were never that high end. My Sparkle Blue Safari that I used to make a ton of videos that are actually still on this channel was back in like 2014, 15, something. I don't know. I bought that when I worked at Sam Ash, and even with my discount working there, it was like $275 out the door. Oh man, but it sounded so good for what it was. I also really like them in the realm of a practice kit, right? Because I do think sometimes it's nice to have a kit that is separate from your main one. So if you're like a gigging or a touring drummer, you have your nice drum set that maybe stays in the cases, and you only bring that out when it's time to go record something, time to play the show. But at home, you can have a much more smaller, compact, but still fully acoustic kit that you can use like some of the different muting options on, right? So you can keep it a lot quieter. That's kind of what I ended up using the Safari for over the years, was just keeping it, I would mute it up and keep it as like the low volume practice sort of set. Man, I love them. I miss having a kit like that for sure. So I'm going to give it the hard accent. I think they're underrated, and I think sometimes people, especially if you come from a rock background like I did, you get convinced that larger sizes are better, and they certainly are for certain purposes or certain applications. Yeah, you do need size to get a certain sound, but I think for the most part, a lot of people they look at them as like they're like toys in a way, where it's like not a real drum set. But dude, I've played DW makes one. I think it's called the DW Bop. It's like an 18-inch kick and like 10-14, and that's it. I think my buddy Devin Sumner actually bought one of those years ago. Dude, they sound mind-blowingly good. They sound so good. So I'd love to actually play the Sonar AQX, some of those, and see what they could do, because the Safari, I think that kit retails $400 or $500. Dude, that thing sounds amazing for the price. So yeah, I'll give it the heavy accent. I love small kits, man. Absolutely.
Cool. Me too. They're great.
Yeah, ton of fun.
All right, I got a little picture for you. I want to see what you think.
Okay. Oh my goodness, how what is this? Late 70s, early 80s? Gotta be.
I think it's early 80s.
Early 80s.
Vinny
Carmen
Appice.
Appice.
It's Vinny. That's Vinny.
Vinny Appice. Okay.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. Well, I feel like I can't possibly ghost this just because of how long. I mean, what an absurd picture. This is so intense. Could you imagine if you just were like hitting the scene as a pro drummer now, and this is what you came out with? Like, what's good? Like, the floor tom mounting situation looks so dangerous. Right? I mean, he's got 14 and 16-inch floor toms turned completely on their side at like head height. How do you even mount those?
That's very tricky rack mounting system, or from the ceiling,
Yeah.
I feel like.
And okay, so I'm also curious about the reso heads of this kit, because there is a rim on the bottom of the drums, but there's no lugs. So it's like it was intended to have no reso head.
Yeah, like concert tom.
Kind of a concert tom vibe.
Yeah, I think that's just one of the styles of the 80s where you were playing big kits like this in larger arenas, and really no need whatsoever for reso heads.
Yeah, just get a giant like boing out of the tom and recorded it. Yeah. Man, that's a fascinating setup.
Yeah. It's what's more interesting too is the park hands that he's sitting right in front of. Those things give off so much heat.
Oh, especially back then too, right? This was decades before LEDs.
Yeah, lighting systems back
those
then.
were hot.
Yeah, for conventional incandescent bulbs, they're putting off 200 degrees Fahrenheit. It's
Sure.
super hot.
Oh, they're insanely hot. He's like surrounding his kit with them. That's funny.
Super cool. And then like the chinas at the top and
man. Okay, so
little bells.
It says special introduction. Oh, I thought it said instruction. Special introduction. Was this like an educational DVD or something?
I think it might have been. These images were pulled from just an Instagram drum content page that I thought it was just funny.
Goodness, man. I think I have to give it the accent just based off of the time. You know, if somebody came out now and this was like their vibe with like the cut off red tank top and the mullet and then this set, it's like, what are we doing? But back then, dude, this was so cool. This was so cool, right? Yeah, I think given the era, we're going to have to give it the accent. That's badass, man. I would love, see, if I was, by Vinny Pie. So I zoomed in on the picture. This was an instructional VHS tape, I guess?
Yeah, it might have been. Well,
yeah.
It wouldn't have been a DVD back then.
Man. Oh, given that, yes, this is badass.
Yeah.
Badass, man. What a vibe that is. That's awesome. Rock steady, brother.
Yeah, let us know if you want Adam to recreate this picture.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'll pay for the outfit. We can do this. I know where to get those Parkans. We'll absolutely.
If I ever go the drum DVD route, which let's be honest, probably not, but if I ever put one out, Rock Steady 2. Man, that's sick. Definitely an accent.
Sweet. All right, and then in tandem with small drum sets, we talked about just a minute ago.
Okay.
What do you think about cymbals mounted on a kick drum?
I don't like anything mounted on a kick drum, to be honest. I'm gonna give that one the ghost. I think, and what do they call it? They call it a virgin bass drum, which is always. I mean, like, what are we saying? Like an unpenetrated bass drum? Like that's that's exactly what you're saying. It's like a weird word to like. Okay, little crude. Could have just said like a naked bass drum or like I don't know, one with no mounts on it. Like, no, it's a virgin.
It doesn't slip off the tongue as easily as virgin.
Virgin. You just get used to saying it, right? But yeah, so I prefer virgin bass drums, nothing mounted on them at all. You know, it makes a lot of sense that the heaviest, thickest, largest, most sturdy drum could support something like tom mounts normally is what would come off of there. But I also I don't know. I don't like the idea of like, one, just putting a ton of weight on your kick drum. Like anybody that's been in a band, if the singer has ever walked over and stood on your kick drum, oh my God, I hate that. That's a bad feeling. Like I've had that a number of times. Guitarist comes over and stands on the edge of the kick drum like, dude, we're gonna pause this song and fight real quick. I hate that. And so I don't know. I don't like the idea of leaving just heavy stuff mounted on a kick drum for years and years. Of course, it's going to affect the integrity of the drum over time. But more so than that, I think just, you know, here's a weird reality about kick drums. People don't know this a lot of times. Your kick drum, as in the drum itself, is not supposed to touch the ground at all. It's supposed to be completely off of the ground. So the two legs that come off of the kick drum, that holds up one end, right? So even the rim on the reso side of your kick drum is not supposed to touch the ground. But then the other side of the drum that faces you, the batter side, that's supposed to be held off the ground by your kick pedal. So in theory, your kick drum should not even be touching the ground. None of your drums are supposed to be touching the ground. It's why your floor toms are on legs. It's why your toms have mounts. The idea is that you eliminate the contact with anything, because ideally, you know, a drum would sound its best if it was like floating in space and not connected to anything. If it was just hovering, that's how it would actually sound the best. You get the most resonance out of it. And the more stuff you have touching a drum, the more that's going to inhibit sort of the vibrations that can pass through it and affect the sound. So when we're talking about like a kick drum specifically, the idea of mounting anything off of it, like ideally, no. Ideally, it would just be completely plain and a virgin. You know what I mean? Like nothing would touch it. So I'm going to ghost that. I'd say no. Though admittedly in an environment where it doesn't really matter, you know, like the micro kit thing, right? That's where you would see that a lot. The Sonar Safari had that, where the 10-inch rack tom mounts on top of the 16-inch kick drum. If you're taking this to a coffee shop and playing that kind of gig, I really don't think it matters. In cheaper drum sets, if it was like a lower end kit, like sub $500, who cares? It's really not going to be that big of a deal. But for a high end kit, if you were spending anywhere near $1,000 or more, man, leave that bass drum alone. Don't mount anything on it at all. Definitely not cymbals and toms. Just leave it alone. So cheap kits only. But for me, thinking like high-end, nice gear, stuff you want to save up and buy, no, mount nothing on the bass drum.
2 accents and a ghost. That'll end out accent or ghost.
Alrighty.
Move on to Sleeper Spotlight.
Sleeper Spotlight, man.
Yeah. It was a fun one to look at people from the internet, people y'all are sleeping on. And then we'll get some opinions, impressions, and constructive criticism, if any, from Adam. Let's see how much stuff he can talk shit about you about.
Exactly.
Cool. First up is Farhat Kokaman. Hope I'm pronouncing that right.
All right.
KCMN Farhat on Instagram. Only has 1,200 followers.
1,200. All right.
Yeah. So we'll click on Farhat.
Farhat, let's go. Video number 1. Cool. Really cool, like funk comping sort of groove, you know. I love his wrist. His left wrist looks so clean, man. Really dialed in technique, playing from the wrist. It's such a good example of like what it's like to eliminate your elbow from the equation, which is something a lot of drummers have to spend years working on, right? Getting your elbows out of the mix, no pun intended, you know, getting your elbows out of the physical motion and just using wrist. So I loved his left hand wrist technique. Really good example of what it looks like to have your left hand dialed in that way, and to still have a really busy groove with a lot of dynamics, a lot of textures. And, you know, plenty busy too, right? That sort of funk comping groove will keep your left hand moving a lot. So that was really clean. And I love rack tom, like smaller rack tom, the rim sound. It's a really like underused voice on the kit.
Yeah.
A lot of, I swear that there's times when I'm recording a loop and I'll accidentally like hit the rim and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I forgot about how dope that sounds. Like, maybe I could actually use the rim to play something. Sometimes I do. Also, on my signature snare, the Entity, the wooden rim has a really cool sound. So I like that style a lot. But that was clean, man. Beautiful technique, beautiful playing.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right, another clip from Farhat there.
Another from Farhat. Here we go. Is he playing backwards? Or is the video backwards?
The video's
flipped. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm way more. Oof. Man, what a puzzle that is.
Yeah, tricky stuff.
Yeah. See, we had a drummer on Sleeper Spotlight a few episodes ago. Very similar, right? Where we talked about like these puzzles that you can start creating. It's a very specific way to practice, but there's a lot of cool stuff that you can figure out too. I'll tell you another moment of this video that I loved was the absolute baseball bat swing of the crash that happened, you know? There's like a certain level of commitment that you have to have. And it's funny because I know what it's like to work on these puzzles like this that he's building, right? Where I don't know, there's just like a rhythmic challenge between your hands and your feet, like, or there's an ostinato happening, and you know, and you're anticipating a certain moment where it resets or the one is coming, and you're like, I'm holding on right here. You just like smash on the downbeat of one. There's a certain level of confidence that you have to have, but it was funny because you can see it in his body language of like, it's coming right here, and then he just smashes it. I know exactly what that feels like, but man, that was really clean. High level of independence, and it takes you have to go really, really deep, man, in order to work those puzzles out. It just requires hours of just, you know, intense concentration to work that out, and he played very, very clean. Awesome. That was a killer one, man. Everybody go check out Brother Farhat.
Yes.
All right. Who we got next?
Next up is Jack Jones.
Jack Jones.
Not the Jack Jones, but another Jack Jones.
Okay.
Has about 6,200 followers on Instagram.
All right.
At JDrums42 on Instagram.
Cool.
And got a few videos from him.
All right. First video from Jack Jones. So first of all, I'm getting strong. Maybe it's just Ash Zone vibes, right? Reminds me of him quite a bit. Something about the like lower hands, like plays from the wrist more than most people do, right? Like there's the elbows are like, what's the way to say it? Like it's more of an obtuse angle. Like he keeps his hands very low and gets the stick height like purely from the wrist. Doesn't use his elbow like in any way. Yeah, so I don't know, really unique like technique to this guy's playing, but also like a very hard style to describe because I heard some vintage mannerisms, like some old school kind of licks. But also he's doing some like more uncommon stuff, like really fast diddles up on the toms. But his toms are tuned kind of high, so you can do that when you have a like, you know, it's almost like a jazz tuning on the kit, right? Like the toms do sound very high. But man, he had a couple of like speedy bursts in there that are really indicative of his overall skill level. Like the guy can absolutely shred. Really interesting. He's also got one of the best drum books you could ever buy on a music stand behind there called Future Sounds by David Garibaldi. I own that book. It's the kind of book where like you crack it open and you read the first 2 measures of page 1 and I'll see you in 2 months. Like, I mean, it's like that difficult of a book, right? I mean, there's so many just gems in there, grooves and fills, linear stuff. Yeah, that's a fantastic book, which I imagine he's worked through quite a bit. Man, interesting player and very interesting sound for sure. I think I need to watch the second one here just to get like a grasp on his style. It was so eclectic and strange.
Yeah.
Very interesting. All right, second one here from Jack. Man, it's such a unique style, right? Definitely something in the technique realm that reminds me of Ash Zone. Like, I don't know, like a loose wrist thing. I'm having a hard time describing it, but something reminds me of like technique-wise about that. Yeah. It's also weird though because his style and his kit sound there's like a contrast there. Yeah. Like the kit sounds like it's tuned like how Mark Juliana would tune a kit.
Yeah, or like a JoJo Mayer kind of tuning.
JoJo Mayer tuning, or like Eric Harland. Like it sounds like a little more like purist jazz tuning, like very high toms, but his playing isn't like that. You can hear that future sound influence here, right? A lot of that linear funk comping sort of stuff. Man, but see, I love this because it's easier for me. Well, I don't want to say easier, but like there's more to talk about in a drummer like this because the styles are like all over the place, or rather his influences clearly come from a variety of different places. So this to me is like a very interesting drummer, right? Because it's hard to put him in a box where it's like, well, is he a rock drummer or a funk drummer or a jazz? Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like he's a confusing person, right? I don't want to say confusing person, but like just a more eclectic drummer. There's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. So for me, these are some of the more interesting ones for sure. Because I bet we could go through his whole Instagram and find a lot of different skill sets that he has.
It was very entertaining to go through his Instagram. Yeah. It was awesome. Everything seemed very different and new, and it was very, rewarding to find his Instagram. I think it was suggested by someone who is a listener. So he sent me an email for his Instagram.
Yeah.
And I love it. He's great.
Yeah, this is a killer one, man. It's a killer because let's be honest, you can go through Instagram all day and see a lot of the same thing. And if not the same thing, then a lot of people, trying to do the same thing, where here's the chop video, here's the groove video, here's the drum cover, here, But to see somebody that has a style that is like so deeply unique like that, it is really hard to find people like that. So yeah, I'm impressed, man. This was very, very cool stuff from Brother Jack. Awesome, man. Couple of great sleepers. Go check out Jack and Farah, guys. Do it.
Yeah. And if you've got any suggestions for sleepers that you see on the internet that we're missing, shoot me an email at chris@orlandodrummer.com.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
All right.
Cool. That'll do it with Sleeper Spotlight. We'll move on to the Q&A portion of the podcast. We answer any questions, any and all. They come from Instagram. They come from YouTube. or the forums of orlandodrummer.com. Or you can email me directly at chris@orlandodrummer.com. Basically, any way to contact me about questions about the podcast, shoot me an email there.
Yeah.
First question from Emmanuel Asuncion.
Okay.
I have an extra room in my house that had been my practice room for years, but since COVID happened, that extra room I had to turn to actually room for my... Okay. They turned it into a room for their uncle to stay with them. It's been a year since my kid has been set up, but still currently play at church, but no practice, and as a result, my playing has been very sloppy. Now a friend has suggested to rent a storage unit just to have a practice space, and I'm strongly considering it. What are your thoughts on that and or other suggestions to practice without the practice space? Thank you, and I love the podcast.
Gotcha. Good question, Emmanuel. So, storage units, right? That's what it's about, right? Yeah. It's very tricky. I've known a number of people. Good buddy of mine, one of the groomsmen in my wedding, actually, Devin Sumner, D-Sum Drums. He had a storage unit around here for a very, very long time. And it was interesting hearing about what it's like to be in a storage unit. So first of all, we should say that not all storage unit facilities allow musicians to be there, right? Some of them will just kick you out as soon as you start making that kind of noise. And some of them do allow that, and they'll tell you, like, yes, we have tons of bands that rent these storage facilities as rehearsal spaces. So that's the first thing that you need to do is find out if the specific storage unit place that you're interested in, if they even allow musicians to be there. The other catch here is that, you know, not all of them are climate controlled, and I think that's a must, right? If you're going to put all of your audio gear, recording gear, a drum set inside of a storage unit, it's got to be climate controlled, right? And normally what that means is that they keep it at like 78 or like 81 degrees, so it doesn't get like brutally hot or brutally cold. I'm talking about Florida, obviously. Yeah. You might have a different problem in a colder state. So yeah, it has to be climate controlled. The other thing that you've really got to take into consideration is power. You know, are you going to be able to get power in there? Some of them have one outlet. Some of them have none. Others have an outlet in the hallway, so you've got to run an extension cord into the room. That's just if you want to have like good lighting. You know, so if you're making content there, that's another thing. That's another thing you got to consider, right? I want to say, who was it? Jeff Randall, Killer drummer. Mm-hmm. I believe he had quite a while where he did a storage unit type of setup. So you know, it can be done. It definitely can be done. I would say the thing to consider though is that you are renting a space, so it's money that's just going away, right? So if you said I'm going to pay $200 a month for a year. Well, you know, that's a little over $2,000. What happens if you took $2,000 and decided to, you know, fix up a room in your house or a place in your house where, you know, maybe you were able to film there. Maybe you spend that money on soundproofing type stuff. I mean, I would just think of it that way, because when you rent a facility, you can't really do that much to a storage facility, right? That room isn't yours. That box isn't yours. So there's only so much stuff you can do to the room itself as far as sound treatment, decorations and aesthetics, things like that. So it's not a bad option. If it's just for practice, it's probably one of the better options if you truly have no other room, you know, in your house. But one thing I'll say, and I've heard of a lot of people doing this before too, is sharing the space with somebody else. If you can find another drummer or perhaps even a band, someone else who's in the same position as you where they need a rehearsal facility, what you can do is rent it with them and then schedule like certain days or times. And let's be honest, you're probably not going to go there 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. That's an insane amount of time to be playing music anyway. But, you know, if you just said, well, hey, I'm only going there, you know, at nights, Monday through Thursday for 3 or 4 hours. All you have to do is find somebody who's on a different schedule, another musician, and they might say, well, that's perfect because I practice in the mornings on the weekends, right? So that's another way to look at it, is that you could split the cost. But the first thing that you have to make sure of is that the storage facility that you're considering, that they actually allow musicians, because the worst thing would be if you sign a contract for a year of a storage room and then the first day you play, they're like, hey, what are you doing? That's not allowed here. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But I think it's a good option, man. I think it's a good option. I would just consider, you know, if you're going to spend a couple $1,000s a year on that, is there another way you could spend that money where maybe you're spending it on soundproofing stuff in your own house that you own, that you get to keep forever? Because renting stuff is, you know, not ideal in the long run, but depends on the position you're in, man. But yeah, I would say it's not a horrible idea. Something to look into, explore it, you know?
Cool. Well, thank you, Emmanuel, for your question. Next question comes from 5064 Maverick.
Okay.
On YouTube. Would anyone or anything in particular tempt you out on a tour, a show run, or recording for an artist in their environment for a period of time? Regards, Steve.
Oh, that's a tough one for me, man. Yeah. I guess I should start out by saying, I have turned down a lot of gigs. For some reason in maybe 18, 19, I don't know why, man. Maybe it was just that YouTube was sort of peaking in a way, but I got offers for gigs and albums, dude, like once a week for a year. It was kind of constant. It's really slowed down a lot now. I don't get those kind of offers too much. One relatively big offer came through someone you knew at the lighting place.
Yeah. My old boss is Porter Robinson's lighting designer.
Yeah.
And he was going to go on a tour last fall.
And that was international, right?
It was going to be like 2 years total.
Yeah, it was a giant
2 months
tour,
in the U.S. and then like kind of 2 years on and off internationally.
Yeah.
And my boss hit me up and was like, does Adam know anybody? I was like, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'd be willing to do it.
Yeah.
It's definitely good pay.
Sure.
For sure. Yeah.
And big venues too. Porter Robinson's a big artist. There's been a lot of those that have come across that are tempting and interesting, right? Because the last gig I played ever was with my friend Emily Kopp, who goes by her artist name now, Lowen. Talented singer-songwriter. Played a gig with her, I want to say 5 years ago now. And before that, I hadn't played a gig in like 2 or 3 years. But man, that gig, it reminded me of why I stopped taking gigs, because in order to do this job, running an online education brand with a school, with apps and a website and members and all that stuff, it is not realistic that I could have built all of this while also playing gigs. There's genuinely not enough time in a week to break my kit down, go to rehearsals, dedicate all this time to like musical performances, gigs, loading, unloading. There's no way I could have done both at the same time. And I have to tell people that sometimes, like, I had to choose between like the gigging world and doing this online education thing. At least for me, that was sort of my reality. I didn't see how I could possibly balance both of these things. It felt like I would have my eggs in too many baskets, right? So I chose the online route, and it's the reason that I don't play gigs to this day. So the question is there any type of gig that could come up that would really tempt me? I would say it would have to be like a very short list of artists that I would regret if I said no. I'll give you my number one. Rascal Flatts.
That's surprising,
dude.
actually.
Man, I'm a sucker for like well-written country, and Rascal Flatts in my eyes has like some of the best country songs like ever written. Especially, I grew up with that in the late 90s, early 2000s. Man, Rascal Flatts has some hitters, boy. They got some songs that if you don't cry listening to that, you're not a human. Just beautifully written, powerful, powerful songs, man. So Rascal Flatts would be at the top of my list for sure. And then, of course, there's the superstars. Would I turn down a gig with Taylor Swift or Ariana Grande or some like massive arena? Like, I don't think I would. I think I would take that just on the premise that like, so few people ever get to do that. Like I would give up an online career just to have that experience, But the way I see it is like it's a trade. If I take a gig like that, I'm giving up a position that I have as a YouTuber, as an online educator, as an online drum school owner. That's a trade. And so it would have to be something where I assess the website, orlandodrummer.com, the relationship I have to the members there, the relationship I have to YouTubers, my Instagram followers, to all those people, and say, man, I'm going to sort of, in some roundabout way, give up the value of this relationship for something else in the music industry. And I've never had an offer for a gig or an album or something that would be very time-consuming like that. I've never had one come in where it really tempted me that much. It was always like, no, I like what I have in the online space more than I like this touring opportunity or the thought of recording on this album, right? But there are certain ones. So I'll say like Rascal Flatts is probably the best example. If they email me and they're going on like a world reunion tour, I'm in. I'm in. Yeah.
right.
I'll take the time off. Yeah, it's got to be big enough, man. Or of personal interest to great enough personal interest to me. That's what I'll say. Not big enough, but it's just gotta hit me somewhere deep to trade my online position, honestly.
What about a clinic tour? I mean, you've done clinics, but
Yeah, I've done plenty of clinics, man, but to be totally honest, and I'm hesitant to say this because I don't want to like call it permanently, but man, even long before COVID, the clinic world has been in like severe decline. I mean, I say this having spoken to some of the higher ups at like Memphis Drum Shop, which is, these legendary drum places. I mean, they'll tell you that back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, it was nothing to pack a drum shop for a clinic. It wasn't hard at all. But the internet has just made it where it's like, if you ask somebody like, do you want to drive 3 hours to this clinic at this drum shop, or would you just pay, $2 to see it online? Or maybe you'd pay no money at all and we would just live stream it. And that's just kind of how it seems to work now. This idea of like these massive sold out drum clinic environments. Like I was told 5, 6, 7 years ago that like, it's not doing that well, And I have done some big clinics in my career. I'd say the biggest one I ever did was 500 plus people at like a PASIC sponsored event at a college. And I've done smaller, like more masterclass type things. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think that era is just slowly dying. Not to say that there won't be any drum clinics, but it's hard. It's a hard thing to book, a hard thing to do, especially now with COVID, man. I just don't know how realistic it is that would even come up in the next few years,
It could.
It could.
I'd wager to guess that they could, depending on the drummer. But
depends on the drummer and the pull that they have. Yeah. You know what hybrid I really like about this? This was something Periphery and Matt Halpern did, was sort of combining the clinic, masterclass, lesson, educational environment with touring. Mm-hmm. So the band would do educational things before or after the shows that they played. I like that combination a lot. Remember when Warped Tour had a thing years ago of they would teach lessons?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. What was the
Band
name
Happy?
Of this? Yeah.
Was it Band Happy?
Yeah, Band Happy.
Halpern had a lot to do with that.
There's another website that I think Luke helped with, where they would combine it with Warped Tour dates. And then you would reserve times at Warped Tour.
Yeah.
You'd also have to buy a Warped Tour ticket.
Sure.
And then on top of that, get like the time slot.
Sure. But I like that combination. That makes a lot of sense to me because I love the thought of like any show that you go to, you can get a lesson with members of the band before or after the show. That seems really cool. That seems like a win-win for everybody. Mm-hmm. You're incentivizing someone to drive a lot further to come to your show. You're making more money. It's convenient because the artists are already on tour. The gear is already here. It's already unpacked. Like, I don't know. To me, that kind of thing made a lot of sense. A lot of sense. So who knows? Maybe when touring opens back up, we'll see how far that actually goes.
Yeah.
I like it.
I actually have a funny story. It reminds me of me and a buddy went to see August Burns Red like years and years ago. Dude, it was like something out of the cosmos that just Matt Greiner and Adam Gray came out and just noticed us two, and we looked like drummers.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Are you the kids from Band Happy?" And they had like a brick full of sticks. And we're just like, "Oh no," because we just kind of like ran into them and introduced ourselves. And then they're like, "Oh man," because we were supposed to give free lessons to kids from Band Happy and give them free sticks, and we were just like, "Do we lie?
You shouldn't lie." Yes,
do we lie? Yeah, but I have met Adam several times.
Yeah,
just in like passing at shows since then, and cool dude.
Yeah.
Cool. Would have been cool to get a lesson from both of them, but passed it up, gave it to someone who probably won it. I don't know. But anyway, cool. Well, thank you for the thoughts on what would tempt you to go out on tour. Rascal Flats, please send me an email.
Rascal Flats, hit me up, baby. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, and if you've got any questions for Adam or the podcast in general, just comment it down below on YouTube. Send me an email at chris@orlandodrummer.com. You can also go to the members area of orlandodrummer.com if you are a member and put some questions in the forums.
Yeah.
You send them anywhere. Cool. Well, that'll do it. So... yeah, close out the podcast if you want.
Cool. Yeah. So I got kind of a cool one for you today. This is really, there's two stories here. Also, let me tell you the two stories before we get into this closing message. there is a company called Barbell. Got the shirt on today. There you go. Barbell Apparel. And I bought their gym shorts. Have you ever seen any videos of me wearing little tiny gym shorts? They're always from Barbell Apparel. I own like every color of them.
I remember every video of you in tiny shorts.
Yeah,
actually.
I know. But I love their gym clothes, basically. I own a few of their t-shirts, some of their jeans. They make really nice jeans as well. It's sort of in that athleisure fitness territory of like the clothing industry, but I just like their clothes. That's it. And I've ordered, 5 or 6 times from them over the last like 4 or 5 years. But I placed an order. What did I get? I got a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, maybe like 3 weeks ago or something. And a couple days after I placed the order, I get an email from a guy named Kyle. And Kyle said, hey man, I just stumbled across your order, recognized your name. He said, I'm a drummer. And Kyle is the director of Barbell Apparel. Just like small world kind of stuff. So he ended up giving me an extra t-shirt with my order. Boom, shout out Kyle. And another pair of jeans, actually. It was awesome. So, really, really cool and random. And then another story, kind of in this same wheelhouse. I actually got legally married. What it's been 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason we got legally married at the courthouse. Kelly and I did, and we did that because our wedding is in Tennessee. That's coming up in late April, and it's really complicated to get married out of state. Anyway, it just made more sense for us to get legally married here, and then the wedding is like a separate celebration. So when we got married at the courthouse, our randomly appointed courthouse representative who did the wedding was a drummer. And not only was he a drummer, he knew who I was. It took him a while to recognize me because it's a courthouse, so we had to have masks on. But he saw the name on some of the paperwork and was like, are you like Orlando drummer, like Instachops? I was like, yeah, man. And it was a drummer. And it's just funny having a couple events like this happen back to back. It reminds me what a small niche community the drumming community is. It's such a small, compact little world, and it's so cool when I run into drummers randomly, not through the drum industry. Like you meet them through ordering a t-shirt online, or you meet them at the fucking courthouse randomly, right? I mean, stuff like that. And admittedly, it's easier for me to meet those people because there's a likelihood that they might know who I am because they've seen my videos. So in a way, it's sort of like hacking, like, that I could get recognized, because I'm sure I've met many drummers who they play drums their whole life, but I didn't recognize them from anything necessarily. But man, it's just such a cool experience. So for me, it was just a reminder of like how nice it is to be in just this small niche little community, where I sometimes think there is something special about the drum community as well, because there are more guitarists in the world than drummers. Certainly, there's many, many more. The sales numbers at working at Sam Ash would tell you that, right? Like, there's a lot more guitarists than drummers out there. But there is something missing from other like instrument communities that I see in the drum industry, where I don't know exactly what that is, but we've got it. We've got it, right? There's some sort of like inside drummer joke that just seems to run through our community, right? And so I like that a lot, and it's just really cool for me when I get to have those experiences of randomly meeting drummers. It just makes me grateful to be a part of this really, really small, really niche community. It feels like a small town. Yeah. That's what it feels like sometimes when you find out somebody's a drummer. So anyway, just feeling really appreciative of this awesome community that we have, and happy to share it with you guys. Happy to share it with you, Chris.
Yes, happy to be a part of it.
Oh yeah, man.
Cool.
Well, that's all we got for you in episode 14.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
Knocked it out.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it. Adam here, the Orlando drummer. I will catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye.